What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Chris, man. I am here at the Work Hard, Play Harder podcast. It is May 29th, 2024. Um, beautiful, beautiful day here. My name is Chris Drummond. I am a sports reporter, freelancer. I'm also a casino host, proprietor of this podcast, Work Hard, Play Harder. We'll be bringing guests on here to talk about their why, talk about uh, who they are beyond the occupation, ask some fun questions, and get to know them a little bit outside of their job. I have a special guest that's coming on with me today. Her name is Bri Maestes. She is in control of the Let's Talk Broncos (LTB) podcast. She's a fellow podcaster, and she also has a 0 to 60 podcast. The LTB podcast runs 5 shows a week. She also does work for the University of Colorado Buffaloes. Does a show there as well. She is also somebody who is over the pharmacy school as well as an admissions guru. So we're going to talk to her about her why of getting into podcasting, her love for sports, ask her some icebreaker questions, and get into it, baby. So without any further ado, I introduce to you the lovely, the talented, the beautiful Bri Maestes. Hi, Bri. What's going on?
Hi
Welcome.
there. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just great. How you doing?
Let's see.
Can you hear me?
Sorry, real quick. Looks like my speakers are being a little troublesome. Okay, try again.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, no problem. Welcome. Welcome to my podcast. How you doing tonight?
It's good. How are you doing?
Doing absolutely lovely, and you look absolutely lovely. I just want to throw that out there.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome. Once again, just want to welcome you and give you a little bit of background to why I wanted to have you on my podcast. I love talking to people and getting to know people about their why. I know that you have a very busy schedule. You do 2 different podcasts, which is the LTV podcast, and you also do the 0 to 60 podcast as well. And I want you to describe both of those podcasts in detail in a bit. But I also know that you work with a pharmacy, if I'm not mistaken. You're an admissions person over the pharmacy. So I'd love to hear about that and how you got into that as well. We're definitely going to talk some Broncos. We're definitely going to talk some University of Colorado football as well, because I want your opinion. I'm a Chargers fan, so you know we got to talk about the AFC West and talk
We
about
do.
no question. So I wanted to bring you on because I like-minded people. I'm a sports journalist myself, so I cover games. I talk about sports on this podcast with different people from all areas. But learning about your why you do what you do, is the most important thing to me. So again, I cannot be happy enough to have you on here because it's absolutely lovely.
Awesome. Well, one, I want to thank you. I know we had to align our schedules quite perfectly to make it all work out, and I appreciate your patience with me too. As yeah, a little bit of a busy schedule. Not only am I, full time, do I have a real job, a day job, but I moonlight as a media personality. You mentioned my podcast, but you can also find me, filling in for the radio for 850 KOA, that's 94.1 FM here in Denver, for a little bit of work on Broncos country tonight. But my main babies are Let's Talk Broncos, that I started with 2 very great friends of mine, Joey Richards and Zach Seegers. I just got off of there not too long ago. We just had an episode tonight. We go Mondays and Wednesdays. And then the 0 to 60 podcast, where I produce a lot of the content over there, but I also show up every once in a while, and that's because my spouse, my partner, is the main host there.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of just in alignment with football and sports is life. And that was kind of the general progression into covering mostly the Broncos, but again, it can be just about any sport that we talk about. Mile high basketball, obviously, with the Nuggets just recently getting eliminated from the playoffs, which was a
Sure.
heartbreaker. And I don't know if I can go too in depth in there, but obviously the University of Colorado seeing a resurgence, and what a more appropriate time. You mentioned my work with CU Pharmacy, and I've been there a decade now,
Wow.
working
Okay.
directly for that institution. So if you're, listening and you're really that interested, you can Google me and find me. But I try to keep those aspects really separate of my life, just because, yeah, like working a full time job and hustling on the other side of media. And I'm sorry I keep looking away from you. I have a cat. Her name is Lucy, and
That's
she
okay.
hates when I talk, and I'm constantly talking, and she wants to be like right on top of me. And she just got her claw stuck in my chair, so I was making sure she was all good. But
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
yeah. So in the broad spectrum of everything, yeah, I'm a busy person, but I love to hop on podcasts and talk ball and see, where what everyone else's story is.
Sure, absolutely. And I definitely know about that full-time life of media personality as I'm a full-time casino host where I live. I'm based out of Minnesota. So obviously I'm not going to go too much into the Denver Nuggets series with you, but at the same time, um, I totally understand that, right? Having those two separate lives, it gets very busy, but this is what we love to do. We love to do this. We love talking to people. We love being involved with sports, but we also know we got to pay the bills as well. So the bills got to get paid. My first question to you is the same question that I have for everybody that hops on this podcast: is what is your why? Right? You talked about your spouse. I believe he's a former NFL player, if I'm not mistaken. I may be wrong,
Correct.
but
Yeah,
if he is, I believe he is. Talk about your why of getting into podcasting, getting into sports, and how that correlates.
yeah, it was, I know I mentioned it previously when we had been initially messaging back and forth with, uh, you know, the road to media life, and everyone's is so different. Some people, go to school directly because they're obsessed with the journalism part of everything. And my story is unconventional, and it's a lot of like being in the right place at the right time. I would say it started 4 years ago when, life changed for everyone during COVID. And a lot of people were questioning their whys, why they were living the life that they were presently living when it's so short and fragile.
Right.
And I think COVID really had the and I and this is a really terrible thing to say, but it's also very poignant for what I'm trying to, I guess, lead into, is that it was a beautiful way to fracture things that were no longer working for a lot of people. And
Okay.
alongside all of the heartbreak and devastation and death and divisiveness was the ability to renew. And a lot of people, unfortunately, wait for those shoes to drop in order to make those decisions. And around that time, undergoing a huge just personal shift, and kind of not knowing where to go next. Like, I didn't have, um, a whole lot of commonality within,
Mhm.
the people I was around, and that
Right.
changed drastically because you had Twitter, you had your social media, and you had sports, and that's about all you really had, and you barely had sports.
Right.
So, it was a lot of, people wanting to feel close, but not being able to be so in a proximity way. And so Twitter was really kind of the path in which I was able to communicate with like-minded individuals who were sports fans, primarily Denver Broncos. That's how it started.
Right.
And then I started listening to a little radio program religiously, from 6 to 9 PM, and that was Broncos Country Tonight, and I was obsessed with it. I didn't know what sports talk radio was. Like, I knew it existed, but I didn't really understand the basis of it is bringing together a common group of people who want to listen to these individuals regardless of what they're talking about. We know the topic is the Broncos, but
Sure.
you wanted to hear them trade barbs back and forth, and you wanted to kind of be a part of the inside jokes, and it's like a community, and I didn't realize at the time, but that's exactly what was being kind of elicited in my brain as I was listening. I was like, "This is great. I love this. I want to be a part of this." So I would tweet, and fans of the show would, you'd start interacting with them, and you all had this common thing, like 6 to 9 p.m. you were listening to this radio program and you were talking about the Broncos, and it just it organically became this thing that you do, and you start investing time, and you start getting really interested. I think prior to all of that, I considered myself a very casual football sports fan. Like, of course, basketball was kind of more my thing, but casually. Like I love sports. I love watching sports. I like talking about sports for what I understood. But 4
Right.
years ago, I never would have anticipated myself, looking at defensive schemes and tracking draft profiles and trying to understand like the mechanics of how an organization works. I was just paying to go watch a ball game and drinking a couple of beers with my friends. So it rapidly progressed into something else. And it was a lot of, fan podcasts at that time. Like everyone was like, well, I'm going to start a podcast because I have all this extra time. I'm working from home, and
Absolutely.
you would show up at training camp, and that's how I met Joey and Zach. Is we had been talking on Twitter. We knew each other existed. We went through the COVID year where we weren't allowed to be around anyone. And then in the training camp season just following that, it was like this big welcome home for everyone who had gotten to know each other digitally.
Right.
We're able to come together and like meet face to face, and in a safe spot where we're all just there to watch football on a summer day. And that's kind of how it started. It was like I found all of these people that I didn't know, I had no idea of previously, and then found the people that I wanted to be around. Like that's the very infantile stage of how this all kind of exploded for me.
I love that. I love that. On here with media personality and radio host Bri Maestes. Did I say that last name right, by the way?
You did. Yeah, actually, I
Okay.
usually just tell people to say Maestes, and you like nailed it.
I'm from Cali, so I know what it is. Like I said, I know names like that. They got a little spin to it. You know what I mean? So I sounded it out about 45 times in front of the mirror too. By the way, just to make sure I get it correct. So I
Well,
did
I
that.
appreciate that. Yeah, no, Maestes is correct. I usually just say Maestes. It's easier, but I appreciate that.
I appreciate it, no doubt. Now, you talked about people traditionally going to school for this. I know I was one of them. I went to Kennesaw State University and got my degree in broadcast journalism, and I'm working on my master's as we speak in professional writing. Talk about what school did you go to, if you went to any school, and if you chose that school, why did you, and did you have other schools or other options to go to?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a deep and convoluted story that like ties into absolutely zero to what I'm presently doing, but I tried the school thing, and this is going to sound crazy working in academics, but
Mhm.
it wasn't a priority. I played volleyball in high school, had the opportunity to go play some at some Division 2 schools, ended up not going in that direction. Kind of, at 18 years old, they leave a lot of decisions up to not fully developed brains, and you kind of
Right.
don't know what to do. And I decided I was going to kind of take like a gap year,
Mhm.
and go screw off and do something dumb with my time. I moved to the East Coast, and ended up coming back. And I tried school, you know, 3 times, and didn't ever really work out to the capacity of getting the degree I went in to get. I obviously wanted to go into journalism, because I liked writing and I felt like that was just appropriate, but I
Right.
didn't have any lofty goals. I wanted to be an artist, and prior to that, I wanted to be a professional wrestler. So my entire life has been um, not really knowing what direction to go into, and then kind of being frozen in fear to make a decision, right? Like there's some
Yeah.
lofty things you have to think about when you're making those types of decisions. Like at 18 years old, you're supposed to know what you want to pour all of your energy into. So I tried Metro State University, which used to be Metropolitan College here in Denver. It's now one of the state universities. And I've done some coursework through, CU Denver, because as a employee, it just makes sense too. But I never really decided to designate a path. What happened was is much like my media career, I fell backwards into academia, and I've been in admissions now. I was a volleyball coach for a little bit. I worked retail, and then I fell into the admissions world in a for-profit institution. And then after 5 years of that, I decided to move to the University of Colorado because that's just where I wanted to be. When you think about the state of Colorado, the University of Colorado, it just made sense. And I made that progression pretty easily. That transition, was an easy step. And I've been doing kind of the same stuff for a decade and a half. And so it was never about passion necessarily. Like when you ask my why was to find something and get incredibly good at it as best as
Sure.
possible and then
Mhm.
go to the next thing. And I happen to just find myself in these predicaments where if you say yes enough, if you just keep, like, obviously you want to have happiness and joy and all these other things, but I've always been very motivated by the challenge of learning something and
I love
the
it.
scary process of diving into something that you're not good at, and I think that's why media was such a no-brainer. Is I never thought of as a possibility. Like, you always think about it like, "Oh, that'd be cool." The professional wrestler thing was always like "Yeah, but I'm too shy, like, I could never do that." I liked working
Sure.
out, and I, found myself I'm a very vibrant personality, but I never thought that I would ever apply that to anything because I was always very put your nose down to the grindstone, work 110%, no regrets, straightforward, just try to climb the ladder. And you'll
Sure.
find in academia that if you don't have the degree they want, that can be difficult. And I was just blessed that somebody saw my hard work and my common sense and my will to just, prove everybody wrong as a way to really solidify myself in what I do. And working in admissions is challenging for a multitude of other reasons, but at a certain point you're always wondering what else could I have done, and falling backwards into that and then and immediately into media where I was just saying yes. I People would ask me to come on their podcast, and at a certain point you have to ask yourself,
Mhm.
am I saying no to opportunities because I'm scared? And at the end of the
Right.
day, that's always what it was. Public speaking was
Right.
just because I was afraid. Taking new jobs or applying elsewhere was always because I was fearful of, failure. And the worst thing that could happen at this point in my life, when I started making these transitions was if I don't do it, well, I A, always regret it. And B, what's the worst that could happen? They stop asking me back, and wildly enough, they didn't. It was offer after offer to appear on these shows, and I think what's weird with media is the specialized training, which I respect so wholeheartedly, especially in written form and producing, and all the people that make me feel like being a part of this industry is so important, right? Like the credentialed journalists who are putting their passion into everything that they do,
Mhm.
is that you either have the gift of gab, you either want to ask those questions, you either are able to quantify those feelings or you're not. And a lot of the time, you have unconventional ways of getting to anywhere. I mean, unless you want to be a brain surgeon or a rocket scientist, like those are very
Right.
specialized. I don't want somebody operating on me because they thought it was cool after they watched a YouTube video. But
Sure. Sure.
media is kind of fun because you don't have to have the credential to start a podcast, and I think my friends and I, Zach and Joey, we tried to go the traditional media route, and we obviously started there with a company here in Denver, and for a year, we used as much of that time in platforming to build, and I think that's what people forget is it's a very um it's a time suck, right? You are at the beck and call of every single day. You're pushing out content and you're what am I going to talk about and how are we going to talk about this? And we were
Sure.
doing
Yeah.
5 to 6 shows a week, and all three of us, and 6 p.m. and live shows, and it was worth the grind, and the minute it's not, right? You lose the passion for it. It's like any hobby. Um, but
Absolutely, no
but
question.
but your why is like, why would I kill all of my social possibilities, and why would I put so much time and effort into something? And I think it was a lot of the ownership of being proud of something that you create, that other people either resonate with or they want to participate in, and we found a lot of genuine friends and co-ops where people were like tuning in and they wanted to know about us. Like they listened to us not because we cover the Broncos, but because they like the way that Let's Talk Broncos talks about stuff. Like they like hanging out with us for an hour and getting to joke back and forth. And that is kind of the big why, is building the community that saved me in the beginning and kind of feeding that back to those who are looking for that same kind of camaraderie and community, and like a place where you belong. It's like hanging out at a bar, but maybe you don't drink and maybe you just want to talk sports with your friends, and every day at 6 p.m. they're going to be right there live streaming. And I think that's really what's become my why, is figuring out how to continuously include everyone who would even take a moment out of their time to hang out with us on a Monday or Wednesday evening.
Sure, absolutely. Love that. I truly do. We're gonna get into some favorite questions, okay?
Okay.
So just give me some of the 411 off the rip, and you let me know what some of your favorite things are based upon these questions. Are you with me, Brittany?
Okay, yeah, I think I get it.
Okay, here we go. Favorite meal you like to cook?
Favorite meal I like to cook would have to be any kind of soup, or like I love a good hearty soup, and I like taking anything that I have in my fridge to make a soup. Like if I got potatoes, I'm gonna figure out how to make a potato soup. And then I really love to grill. I don't eat a whole
Oh,
lot of meat. I don't eat a whole lot of red meat all the time, but if there's a full propane tank and we got some good ribeyes, like I can't wait to grill those up. Like I enjoy the process of grilling a good steak, and all the
oh.
accompaniments too.
Okay, that's my kind of friend. I like that. That's for sure. There's no question. I love the grill as well. So yeah, I'm a huge steak person. Sirloin, ribeye, doesn't matter. Porterhouse may be a little bit too big. I gotta be super hungry to eat a porterhouse. But
Right.
no question, ribeye, sirloin. That's my type of thing I like to do. Okay. Favorite concert you've ever attended?
Oh, shoot. I have recently seen Sleep Token twice.
Hmm.
Once at Mission Ballroom, that was in October or maybe
Okay.
November. And then I
Okay.
just saw them again at Red Rocks, which is the big outside
Amphitheater.
amphitheater. Yeah.
Yep.
And I just saw them a couple of weeks ago, and those are probably the two of my top three. I would say the third one. It's gonna be Avenged Sevenfold, and I'm
Wow. Okay.
struggling to decide, um, if it was the one, like the first one that I saw, which was in 2006 at DU Magnus Arena up in, Centennial here in Colorado, because it was like their first major tour, and, I had just graduated high school and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Um, or their show at, another outside pavilion here in Colorado, and I had very close seats, and it was like you could feel the fire off of the pyrotechnics. I'm big on like sensory stuff. But Sleep Token's really near and dear to my heart, and those concerts kind of stick out as being really super special to me.
Okay, I'm gonna have to YouTube or Wikipedia Sleep Token. I do know Avenged Sevenfold. They got a couple good songs I like. I'm a rock person, but I'm also kind of all over the place with my music. So I would definitely say, for me, it was Drake versus Lil Wayne. That was probably my favorite.
Oh man, I couldn't
No question.
imagine. How
And it
cool
was
was
it was
that?
great. It was great. It was awesome. It was outside at the time. I was living in Atlanta, Georgia. So it was also at another amphitheater. It was called Solaris
Oh
Amphitheater.
yeah.
It was outside, so it was pretty good. And I'm very familiar with Denver and Red Rocks. That's one of the best amphitheaters I've ever been to, for sure. Watching the concert, Ball Arena is also something I've been to as well. So no question. I typically like to go out to Denver before I get to the next favorite, to watch my Chargers play against the Broncos. So typically like to go out there every single year to do that. We'll see if I make it out there this year for sure. If I do, you and me, we got to link up. That's for sure.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
um, this third favorite has to do with favorite place you've ever traveled to.
That's a hard one. I'm not particularly well traveled. Like I've been I think Yellowstone would be really high on my list because it really is one of those top wonders of the world. I went in the winter time, so it was low tourist, which was great.
Mhm.
Really snowy, but the wildlife and the way the steam came off of the geysers, and I just remember that being like really cool to see. Again, very sensory oriented and I love nature.
Mhm.
So I'd say Yellowstone was probably my favorite and I don't think you can really top it. Like if it has to do with mountains and geological stuff, I'm kind of a nerd that way. I don't think I can top that trip.
No question. That I've heard very good things about Yellowstone. Obviously, there's a TV series out that's called Yellowstone.
Right.
So yeah, no question about that. My favorite place would probably be Toronto. No question. Visiting Toronto, I went as a teenager, and we went to. I have a younger brother who's like 10 years younger than me, so decided to take him to Toronto to the amusement park of Wonderland, and it was just a beautiful city there. So I really enjoyed my time there, with the family and everything. So that's pretty cool.
That is really cool. I've never been to Canada. Fun
You
fact.
you should. You should definitely put that on the bucket list. You and your spouse, or if you got a girls' trip that you want to take, you definitely should do that for sure. This next favorite is a two-part question. Favorite sport you like to watch on TV, and favorite sport you like to attend in person. Could be the same sport.
There's, like, hard to beat live football, like, whether it's a high school game, like a Friday Night Lights, or if it's a college game on a beautiful Saturday morning, especially up at Folsom, and
Mhm.
I'm a season ticket holder, so I'm at every Broncos game, unless hell or high water, like a a God-given event where I just can't make it, and I'm a
Right.
glutton for punishment that way, but football is kinda like the easy answer. So I'll say I really like watching Olympic volleyball and like curling. Curling's really fun. I got really obsessed with it there for a while, but
Wow.
it's hard to beat like a Nuggets game when they're super competitive. And that hasn't always been the case, right? Like I grew up in the Thuggets era where you're like questioning why why
I love
this
it.
is happening to you, because I was a good team, and they just
Right.
could not get it done, like, Carmelo Anthony is nobody to me now, and it's
Ooh,
it's kind of like,
ooh.
I love a good basketball game. I love the energy, and right now the
Mhm.
Nuggets are hotter than the Broncos, so I think those are more fun to attend right now.
Good question. I'm a 2005 high school graduate, so I totally understand what you're talking about. And again, my basketball team is the Lakers. So that epic 2009 Western Conference Final Series was probably the first time I was scared in a long time because the Nuggets were rolling. They were rolling in that year for sure with Melo and Phillips and Martin and J.R. Smith,
Yep.
Birdman, all those guys. I'm a historian when it comes to the basketball game. I thought they broke that team up way too soon, but I also thought that George Karl was the cancer to that team as well.
I
In
know,
my
it's wild. It's hard to argue because there's a lot of hindsight that goes into that conversation too of like what could have been, but honestly, it should have been. And you wonder how much coaching plays into that. And George Karl is notorious for being pretty vocal about his frustrations from that time. And it's just an interesting concept. For the Celtics win in 2008, I think it was 2008.
over the Lakers, yeah, it was.
Yeah, I actually went to that parade, 'cause that's
Wow.
the time I was out on the East Coast, and it's, like, the craziest like, I've been to 2 championship parades, but only one of them was the Nuggets, so, yeah, I'm a big basketball fan, I just don't cover them professionally. I'm gonna
Love it.
let the more engaged ones do that.
Oh, well, listen, I did come out there last season for a Lakers Nuggets game. It was a little pricey, but I had to save up my nickels and coins to do that. But the next year that they have a Nuggets Lakers game, if you are attending, please let me know because I would definitely be like, yeah, yo, Bree, we gotta link up for sure.
Yeah, I was at game 1 against the Lakers this season, so
Okay, okay. I would definitely keep that in mind. The next regular season, I'll take a look at the schedule, and if you are there, definitely let me know. We'll link up for sure.
for sure.
Last of the favorites before I get into the next one is favorite restaurant you like to eat at.
Man, that's a hard question too. I love and hate favorite questions because it makes you really think about things, but I'm such a person of the moment. And so it depends, right? Like if you were to ask me right now, my favorite restaurant like at the present moment, it would
Mhm.
probably be something um like a sushi place that I go to quite frequently.
Okay.
But I don't like the lines, so I order it via DoorDash. And so it's Fontana Sushi, and it's really good, but it's my favorite it's like what I would choose right now because I guess that's what I'm craving, but I'm a sucker for Texas Roadhouse. How about I'll throw out Texas Roadhouse as my favorite because, 1, it's easy, I probably would never say no if someone was like, "You wanna go to Texas Roadhouse?" Be like, "Yeah, that sounds like a great idea." But favorites are hard. It's like, I don't
They are.
know, in the moment, like, it's probably none of those things because I haven't thought about food all day. So
So being transparent with you right now, I've never had sushi.
oh,
Uh,
shoot.
Yeah, never had sushi before. Texas Roadhouse is my number one restaurant. There's no question. Number two is Longhorns. Number two is Longhorns. But number one is Texas Roadhouse. The bread there, they have this, I believe they have this cinnamon bread. Or they have this
So
special bread.
it's a butter, so it's like a
Yeah.
honey butter spread for their rolls. Like, their rolls are, I'm sure, filled with all of the crack-based material that make them addicting,
Oh my
but
God. They're so
honey
good.
cinnamon butter, like, that's where it's at.
It's so good. Some of the best. And I love me Texas Roadhouse. No question about it. So I'm with you on that for sure. Let's talk about your I would say day to day, right? You do have a full-time job, like you say, and you do radio. You are on the grind, you are hustling, doing both, as most media people are,
Yeah.
because in this industry, that's just the way it is.
Mhm.
So talk to me about your day-to-day process of how you go about handling doing full-time, but also handling the media stuff that you have to do on the weekdays and weekends.
Yeah, I'm blessed with a lot of flexibility. I've obviously been there for a long time, and, um, it's not to say that I don't have, 45, 50, 55-hour work weeks depending on the season. It's all about, again, your why, and if you want to, you'll find the time. With media, it's always about, if I know that I have a tremendously packed schedule during the season,
Right.
where can I fit in a lot of the appearances? It also means that family and personal life and all of that other stuff kind of takes a toll as well. And so making
Mhm.
the time to get up appropriately, like it would be super easy um with the flexibility to like sleep until 10 and not go to the gym and not work maybe as hard as I wanted to and maybe skip podcasts and the hustle and grind nature is something that I don't ascribe to, and I think that when you too much are center focused on working yourself to the bone, that
Right.
burnout's really, really real, and it's hard to come back from.
Yeah.
So, my day to day is a lot of finding balance and maintaining, like, my well-being. So, if a day feels particularly too onersome because I I'm like, I have all this work stuff, then, media has to take a back burner and maybe the family needs more attention. So you take a
Sure.
personal day or a mental health day. And so I've really learned in my advanced age that if you don't create the balance, it owns you. So work fits in when it does, media fits in where it does, but most importantly, it's me, my well-being, my balance. Am I eating well? Am I taking care of myself? Are we working out? Are we mentally well enough? Because it'll show up in everything that you do if you're ground down to the bone, to the nub. And so it usually looks like waking up at a relatively safe time, and dependent now, like it's 6 a.m. and my eyes are open, which I don't know if I love or not, but that seems to be where we've landed.
Sure.
Um,
Mhm.
working through like tasks for work. So whether that's emails or like I know I have projects I need to get out of the way, um, appointments and everything else that adds up, including like how many different media things do I need to work on during the season. It's obviously a lot higher. Depending on what projects I have coming up, that also looks different. But if it's a radio day, that's 7 hours of prep time for 3 hours of radio. And that's a completely different beast because 3 hours of radio is a lot different than 40 minutes of a podcast. Like there's a lot more prep that goes into it. And in the industry, I'm what's called a driver. So it's kind of my fundamental responsibility to take us where we need to go. I always make fun of the talent because they just get to show up. And, I work with a lot of people who just, they say they don't prep, right? Like they're obviously really good at what they do, but I
Sure.
do a ridiculous amount of prep and almost an overkill. And that's because as a woman in this industry too, you're already fighting a bunch of really frustrating factors. And the last thing you want to do is be caught out with not being prepared. And so I'm also a little type A and control freaky. So I'm always like, I gotta be on top of my shit. Pardon me. But
It's okay. You good.
but I think that, day to day can look so different. I think that's what keeps it interesting too. If all I did, and I think about it all the time, if I was back in, let's say, 2018, and it was waking up, going to work, avoiding the rest of my life and going to bed and doing it all over again, there's no way I would feel a sense of fulfillment like I do now.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I love answering that question because you kind of segued into it a little bit as far as mental health and work life balance, right? And you are married, right? And you do
Well,
have children.
no, I mean, I call him my spouse, but we're not married, not yet. It's
Oh, I'm sorry, engaged or soon to be. My apologies, but like I said, you do have a partner in life, right? And you are full time and you're doing media, and you do need that uh sometimes that mental health day or that mental health break a little bit, right? Because you can burn out Israel, right? I'm a journalist. I've talked to many journalists on this platform that said they've left journalism because of those factors of it just being too much sometimes, the burnout, being underpaid, being overworked. Those are some of the words that have been used in our industry. So talk to me a little bit about your mental health and talk to me about how you did set those boundaries. Like, when did it come to you that you had an epiphany where, okay, Bree, I have to set these boundaries for not just for myself, but also to give time to the right things that need time for.
I think oftentimes when we look at certain circumstances, whether it's work or relationships or, kids or life lessons, we tend to overcomplicate the idea that everything is so difficult and complex and well, I have to do one thing and I can't really make time for the other. What I really learned, and again, I'll point to kind of the transitional point of pre and post COVID, just because that's what kind of like resonates with my brain,
Sure.
is realizing for a very long time prior to 2020, I didn't understand what boundaries were and what burnout actually was and what working yourself to a pulp actually does to your brain chemistry, what trauma does, what abuse does, what I guess a long life of not understanding what mental health is, and there's been a stigma on it for forever, and it
Right.
still makes people uncomfortable, and I think that's what you have to fight on a daily basis is your feelings, no matter how illogical anyone has ever tried to paint them, are very much so valid and reasonable, especially if, maybe mental health is a brain chemistry thing for you, or maybe mental health is a reactionary trigger, right? Like there's so many different variances of it that when we talk about mental health, we also are talking about those nights, those sleepless nights, and those long days, and those 24 hours turning into 48 hours of no
Without
rest,
question.
and you start to really not perform or think your best. And it dawned on me that everything is so interchangeable, whether it's like taking care of yourself physically and mentally, and how you go about that is what are your basic needs that are not being met, and that's probably the answer for a lot of the worries and the hardships that you're feeling. And it took me a long time of finally connecting the pieces of, you know I was wondering why work felt so hard when
Mhm.
it wasn't difficult, and it was because I was working too much and I was pouring too much energy into it, and it was
Right.
never energy into my own cup. And I'm a big preacher of, if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. And I'm a big acts of service, like I love real hard. I'm very give myself to other people, and eventually you learn that you've poured your entire cup out, expecting it to be refilled, and then being very confused when it never is, because you're not filling your cup up. You're just constantly dumping it. So mental health has always been a struggle for me, and I could point back to like really young, and noticing like I wish I would have known what I know now and had those coping skills, but I think
Sure.
everyone does deal with it. Like I've met some people who've told me they don't know what anxiety feels like, and I can't imagine that. I can't imagine a world in which your brain doesn't run rampant with all these conspiracy theories about yourself. So
Right.
it's a lot of awareness, and I learned that really swiftly, that the more you understand, you're not trying to solve, and you're not trying to fix, and you're not trying to get rid of, right, all of these conceived issues. Like there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You just
Mhm.
have these extra steps that you have to take in order to feel okay sometimes. And then some days you're just not going to, and you have to give yourself grace. And at the end of the day, with anything in life, it's about, self forgiveness, giving yourself grace, understanding what you're feeling is valid.
Yes.
And it's hard. Like I can say that over and over and over again. And it's what I love to tell other people, but it's a constant reminder of, there's some days where I will wake up and it just won't be a good day, and also understanding that that's okay. That is life. And as long as you're aware and you're doing the necessary steps, like on a day where you're not feeling well, probably
Mhm.
the worst thing that you can do is continue to self-sabotage yourself into a deeper pit of like wallowy mud. But
Absolutely.
some days there's little you can do other than like roll out of bed and maybe brush your teeth, and even that can be too difficult. So it's a constant reminder that you're okay, you're whole, and that there's no reason to kick yourself when you're already down. And that's been like the real jumping off point for having a better grip on what I consider to be my mental health journey.
Absolutely. On here with radio host, podcast host, and media personality Bri Maestes on the Work Hard, Play Harder podcast. I'm glad you referenced it while you were talking. You said for filling up your cup, right, and then feel like you're having to dump it out. And I really reference mental health like that as well. For me, we all go through our battles. We've all had battles of mental health. We've all had people in our lives sometimes that have caused us a little bit more stress than what we wanted. But at the same time, you do have to deal deal with that things and try to deal with it in the best way that you possibly can, right? Some days are going to be better than other days. You know that. I know that. But you have to, whatever you do in far as in life, we're both in media, so this is something that fulfills us, right? But there's all different kind of occupations out there that may fulfill others. But whatever you do, you want to be fulfilled in what you're doing, and you want to have the right reasons why you're doing it. As far as a job occupation goes, you do not want to go into a situation where you feel like you can't talk to your hierarchies, or can't go and have an open door policy with your bosses and be like, hey, I need a mental health day. Today I'm struggling. I don't know if I could be at my best today. You never want to feel like you're afraid to advocate for yourself like that. There has been some people, as far as guests on this show, that have felt that way. It's a really good question to ask. Boundaries is another thing you touched up on. For me personally, you got to set boundaries early, right? We always talk about how many times do you say yes before you say no, right? You want to be that person that's reliable. You want to be that person to show that I am the one that you can count on. You made the right decision in hiring me or giving me the job or whatever job that is, whether you're a freelancer, a full timer, part timer. But when do you say, okay, you know what? That I can't do it today, right? And a lot of people don't say that because, again, they burn themselves out with overloading them with work. And I love the fact that you realize that, hey, I love doing this, but like you said, sometimes media has to take a back seat. Sometimes this has to take a back seat. Sometimes this has to take a back seat. You learn what needs to take sacrifice at that particular time with yourself. And a lot of younger people that, especially a lot of kids that, and I call them kids now, that graduate out of college, they don't know that. They want to be right there. They don't know what they don't know, right, Bree? So they want to be in front of the camera. They want to be sideline reporting. They see Aaron Andrews, Clarissa Thompson, just throw a couple of examples out, or people on the radio. They see them doing their thing and they immediately want that success. But there's a lot of things that go behind the scenes. There's a lot of sacrifices that people make that they just don't understand, which is the reason why I had this podcast, is because people need to get an in-depth understanding of what media is about. It's beautiful what we create as far as content creation. But can you deal with the backlash? Can you deal with the other side? Can you deal with the burnout? Can you deal with the underpaid and overworked at times and long hours, right? Because we don't work a business type schedule. It's not that. Media is not that. Sports is not that.
I know.
So
Sometimes I'll be creating a broadcast at 9:30 at night trying to find clips, and I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Like, what is this? My eyes are all tired. And you're right.
right.
It's a lot of I guess perceived glitz and glamour, but I love how you put that. Like it's a it when you're seasoned like us, I guess in age, right? Like I'm very new to this industry, but when you got a lot of life under your belt, it starts to take on a different form. I couldn't imagine if I was, 24 years old and had this at my disposal. I'd probably be I'd get canceled is probably the problem.
Be a wild one. I would be a wild one all over the place. I really would. And like you said, us being seasoned, I'm only 5 years into it, a combination of Atlanta and Minnesota of doing the sports reporting thing. But at the same time, I'm new to the podcast game too. I'm just, but at the same time, again, when you're older, you kind of are more sure of yourself. You're more sure. You have more responsibilities. And you're just more sure of what to do, what to say, how to say it, to people that you need to say it to. But the best teacher in life is experience. And I always tell younger people that, like, there's nothing like experience when you go through in this industry dealing with either the publications or the corporations or the TV stations, however you want to do your broadcast. There's nothing like experience. So
Oh, Peyton Manning just said that about Bo Nix this week, which is so crazy. I was referencing that today. It's like the only way a rookie is going to get the experience they need is by being on that field. And like that's how you learn. And it's applicable anywhere. It's You don't know what you don't know, and the only way to know is to go crashing through the plane of reality that you've set for yourself, right? Because where we're going to be at in 5 years is nothing like what we think is presently possible. It's because we can't see it right now, and it's just, I wish like young me would have understood that, because I was always like, I have zero idea. I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna have zero going for me because I have no idea what life is supposed to be. And that's
Right.
because how would you? You can't see that far ahead.
Absolutely. And once again, Bree, that's a great segue because I wanted to get into some Bronco talk. I mean, obviously the Broncos experience with Russell Wilson did not pan out at all. Sean Payton and Russ was probably at odds more times than not. The Broncos are going to look a little different this year with Russ moving on. Now they have Jared Stidham as the number one option. I don't think that's going to last, in my opinion. I think Bo Nix is going to get in there a lot sooner,
Mhm.
but that's just me. A solid offensive line that the Broncos have. They've always been known for a very good defense. Obviously, they lose kind of the heart of defense. And Justin Simmons, they let him go. Don't think they're going to re-sign him because I believe he's still a free agent out
Right.
there. But you do have Patrick Surtain, one of the best up and coming corners in the game. You do have a defense that has always played the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs pretty tough in that division. Now, mind you, the question is going to be the quarterback because now Sean Payton is the offensive guru, right? He had Drew Brees and turned him into quite a superstar. Even though Brees was great when he came to New Orleans, he became a superstar under Sean Payton. Sorry. So, talk to me about what do you think this Broncos team is going to do this 2024 season? Of course, Harbaugh being the new coach of the Chargers, right? The Raiders upgrading their defensive line. Now they have Crosby and Wilkins on the same line. He comes over from the Miami Dolphins. Their quarterback situation, though, is a little bit up in the air. But also the defending champs is in the same division, and they just got younger and better. Adding Hollywood Brown, more speed to that offensive side of the ball than what they already had. So, talk to me about the 2024 Broncos expectations.
Well, listen, Chris, when you put it like that, the expectations are low. They're it's a question that in Broncos country we teeter the lines of being positively optimistic and also rational and a little bit of pessimistic. And I fall somewhere on the middle ground, right? You got to be glass half full. You have to realize what had been happening for the last 9 seasons, because that final Peyton Manning Super Bowl in 2015 feels worlds away. And the idea of the Broncos rebounding to that sort of accolade again, like it just isn't possible without one, you've highlighted it, the quarterback. And we don't know if they've actually answered that question just yet, but they're
Mhm.
at least taking the steps necessary. And it's been a long time coming, with not only the retirement of Peyton Manning with no actual like backup plan, the continuous mismanagement of draft picks and rosters and quarterback carousels, because I don't think I could possibly keep up any further with the amount of quarterbacks the Broncos have had to cycle through in
Sure.
order to finally draft one in the first round and commit to that being their guy. And I may not align with Sean Payton in a lot of areas, but I can respect the fact that if he's going to actually buy into this process, he's gone out now and drafted his guy. If he's able to make it work, then it's all been worth it. And the Russell Wilson contract, you mentioned it right off the bat. That move in general was not high on my list of like great things I've ever heard in my life. I
Right.
immediately was very
A lot of
hesitant.
dead money, Bree. A lot of dead money that they ate up to get rid of him. That said something.
Well, and the trade for Russell Wilson is what concerned me. I think moving on from him was the smartest thing that they did, and it just unfortunate that it came at that price tag, because the fallout from that, I think, is what Broncos country knew was on the horizon. I just don't think we were really prepared for what that actually looked like, and losing, the not only the defensive captain in Justin Simmons, but really the face of the franchise and the community leader that is Justin Simmons and his family, is a sucker punch to the nth degree because you knew that that was the right thing to do for him and for everything moving forward. I hope he's able to land with a contender. I know that's, probably why it's taking so long. Justin has uh, a run of the mill, like he can go anywhere, right? Like there's not a team that's not going to pay a Justin Simmons. It's just unfortunate that he couldn't, he couldn't even have a winning season here in Denver. So it's a lot of frustrating what's happened over 10 years and how are the Broncos and the Walton Penner Group and Sean Payton and George Payton, how are they acting differently this time? And I think there's really positive light on what Sean Payton was able to accomplish with like bolstering the offensive line, making decisions to at least try to give some form of commonality with Russ, although you knew that pairing wasn't going to work out. You knew it was kind of designed to fail. And I'm glad the experiment's over because what we can do now as a team and a franchise and organization and a Broncos country fandom, because it's divisive and it's frustrating. And I think this is the first time in a long while that everyone's kind of been on the same page of, well, this was the only logical way to move on from that. And there's still hope of it being a season where a lot of bright things come to fruition. I know there's going to be a regression of the defense. That's just ultimately what's going to happen. Not only did you lose Justin, but you lost Kareem Jackson, who
You
was the
did.
other veteran presence there. And not only like just for football reasons, but for character of men reasons, like that was a very close knit roster and a defense and a unit in itself. And now you've got Caden Stearns and PJ Locke needing to step into those roles. And I think that they're absolutely primed and ready, but you've got Caden coming off of a patella injury. You've got questions as to, you know, whether or not they can maintain that level of defensive cohesion like that you saw. I mean, Simmons and Kajak could simply look at each other and know exactly what the other was thinking. And that comes with time. That comes with understanding of the defense. That comes with, retaining some of your coaching in order to, really fundamentally have that work out. But they did, see turnover with their coaches as well. And that's the hard piece is the defense is not going to be the defense that it was, but I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that, those young guys learned enough from their from their mentors to really be able to prosper. But the offense has long been the bogging down point for the Denver Broncos. And
Yeah.
as long as there's a constant buy-in that that's what needs the most attention, and who knows, like I guarantee there's a top 10 pick in the Broncos future for next season, and a wide receiver could be on the docket. You could see them continue to bolster that, and at this point it's all about the success of Bo Nix. I think if you see in preseason that you don't feel comfortable starting him, you've already kind of answered your own question, right? But if there's something there and you're able to support him and you isolate a wide receiver one, I hope it's Cortland Sutton. I hope it's Tim Patrick. Like I hope that he has the weapons available for him to really flourish. And if that's the direction they go and it starts clicking, I could see there being hope that the Broncos can be contenders. Maybe not this season, but next season's the possibility. There's still a
Yeah.
lot of holes. They lost linebackers. They don't really have a starting center. That's terrifying if you think about putting a rookie quarterback behind that situation. There's hope that Alex Forsyth is going to be ready to take that task on. And I'm 1,000% in the mindset that like you better cut your teeth and cut them quick. So what a better opportunity than to be thrown into this. But
Yeah.
it makes for this season could be really bad and you just don't know. Like there's not a straight fire answer there. The AFC West last season and the season before maybe looked like, it would be competitive. And right now it feels like you're starting back over. So, do I think the Broncos win more games than they did last season? No, I think they'll be on par. I think you could throw any of the 3 quarterbacks in there right now and kind of receive the same output, but it's about
Mhm.
the yield. Like, you wanna know if you start Bo Nix now, is it getting him the NFL readiness that he needs in order to be successful and build upon? Or does he need to sit and marinate? And it's not like you're taking Jordan Love and putting him behind Aaron Rodgers. Like,
Right.
you've got Zach Wilson and Jarrett Stidham. So what is he gaining? Like, he's still gonna learn that in the quarterback room. I think it's time for Bo Nix, and hopefully Broncos country is patient enough to understand that it may take some time, and that is the point. It's experience, and it's time, and it's consistency, and that eventually pays off. Or it doesn't, and you realize that you gotta do it all over again. Like, that's what NFL teams do. They draft, they,
Mhm.
uh, they put resources into their draft picks, and then they yield a result, and sometimes it's worth the ROI, and sometimes it isn't. I think we have such a stark ability to say, "Bo Nix at 12, y'all screwed yourself," and I'm like, "Well, we don't know yet. We have 0 idea how that's gonna work out, and in 3 years,
Right.
let's come back with the draft grade." So,
Right. Absolutely. And for those that will eventually watch this, ROI means return on investment. I knew exactly what you were talking about,
oh,
but some
good.
people may not. But that's okay. That's all right. Yeah, I mean, to further, put a stamp into that point, the offense is what's going to be the biggest question mark for the Denver Broncos. We kind of know what we're going to expect defensively. They're going to have an up and down season. Obviously, with Jared Judy gone to the Browns, yes, you're going to need a receiver to step up. You're going to need Cortland to step up. I believe you have Josh Reynolds on that team too,
Mhm.
and as well. So it's going to be a question about that for sure. Let's talk about the University of Colorado. Now, obviously, they came out swinging. When the start of the season, a lot of buzz because primetime Deion Sanders was the head coach. They were winning games. Then they finished, I believe, 1-7. They lost 7 of their last 8 games. A couple of them games wasn't even close. They were blowouts, especially the Bo Nix and his Oregon Ducks. That was not close. What do you think this season for Colorado? Shador Sanders comes back, Shiloh comes back, Travis comes back. They also had some people decommit from their program, but they also had some people commit to their program. Deion Sanders said, "We're not going to have another season like that." What do you think the Colorado Buffs are going to do this season, especially now that the Pac-12 is dissolved and now they're going to different conferences and playing different teams?
It's gonna be tough. First and foremost, you've got a ton of pressure and a ton of eyes. The spotlight is directly in the eyeballs of the University of Colorado, and they wouldn't have it any other way. This isn't, you know, uh, an accident. It's definitely exactly what this program wants, what it needs, and at the end of the day, I know a lot of people like to say, well, if you don't have the results, then it's all going to backfire on you. And I disagree. Although I see where that sentiment is coming from, right? Like, put up or shut up is big in a lot of areas, but for the University of Colorado, getting Coach Prime, you've won. Like, you've already won. And we obviously want to see the football program grow and get better, but the amount of attention and funding and um I just relations in general, like personal relation, like bad PR, good PR, contentious. If you're in their mouth, you've won. And I can totally see the headspace where they want to continue to recruit and grow this program, but they set out to do exactly what they've done, and that's to make a name for Boulder, Colorado. And
More
like,
marketable.
I don't think that it gets any better than that. Like, a program that nobody was talking about, absolutely worst season you could have diced up
A
for
couple
a
years ago, yeah,
program,
absolutely. Yes.
and you all of a sudden have Coach Prime and Shador Sanders and Travis Hunter, and for what it worked out to be, 5-star recruits that are no longer with the program. I
Yeah.
think what it shows is just the power that's been created. There's a cattail for you. the power that it's created for the program, for the University of Colorado, for the Sanders family, for Coach Prime, for Prime Time, like there's so many different avenues. And I think they'll probably improve on their record from last season, but I don't know if there's the continuity there needed for the success of the program. The transfer portal has made it almost impossible, right? Like if you
It
have
has,
55 roster turnovers, you don't even have the same genetic makeup of a team. You have your core elements, you have potential Heisman candidate players on your team, but your roster looks entirely different than it did before.
without
You
question.
don't really know who your starting running back is. You've rebuilt your defensive line. You're re-upping your offensive line because it almost killed your quarterback last year. So this is going to be another growing pain. This is going to be was this the right move to, pump and dump roster players and then skill player? Like, did you make the right moves? You
Right.
flushed out everything that was there and then you turned over half of it. Like, you would think that that's the right move. And I trust what Coach Prime is doing because
Okay.
he's a heck of a businessman and a heck of a coach. I'm just not sure. I don't know where everyone started expecting it like, "Oh, they're not winning that many games." Yeah, you don't just immediately create a winning culture. Like, it comes from the hard work and the recruiting and the winning in the transfer
Yeah.
portal and
Yeah.
building, and I say it again, the continuity because it's Coach Prime's 2nd season. All we're hoping for is improvement. And obviously the Pac-12 going away and all of that changing. You've got rivalries that you have to reestablish. Nebraska is going to be right there. That game's pretty early on in the year, and I'm glad that that's still a major component. But it'll be really interesting. There's some really tough teams on the schedule, and I don't like to get my hopes up there, but it's exciting. As somebody who's lived in Colorado my entire life, the
Oh, okay.
excitement of knowing that, the University of Colorado is a household name right now, like who would have thought?
Nobody. I mean, not ever since Cordell Stewart, and I'm a
Right.
historian of the game, so I know you know about Cordell Stewart and that Buffaloes team. So, no
Yes.
question about it. No, Colorado was definitely not a household name 2 years ago. They had one of the worst football records ever. They did manage to win 4 games last year, which was an improvement. And like you said, we have to look at this season being an improvement, but they have a tougher schedule this season. There's no question about it than what they had last season. And yes, they have to make some changes. And you mentioned the offensive line. That's my number one change. Shador got killed last year. They could not block and could not protect him last football season. Just couldn't do it. And then now they're losing their running back. I believe they lost another 5. They lost plenty of 5-star recruits. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Buffaloes do. I wish I can attend a game, but they're all on Saturdays. If they was on Friday, then I would definitely try to go to one of them for sure. But I work on Saturdays. But nonetheless, I'll be glued to my TV watching the Colorado football team. On here with Bri Maestes, who's a radio podcast host. Based out of Denver, Colorado, on the Work Hard, Play Harder podcast. Bri, we've came to that time now where it's time for this or that. So what this or that is that I'm gonna throw 2 things at you, and you choose one or the other. Are you with me?
Yes. This is gonna be hard.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. All right, Popeyes or KFC?
Ooh, Popeyes because I like their seasoning
All right, we definitely gonna be good friends,
and
Bree.
their
Because you
biscuits.
started.
Their biscuits are really good.
Oh my goodness, we're gonna be best friends. We have started off on a good note, girl. You said the biscuits. That's my favorite thing. Okay, here we go. Chicken wings, barbecue or lemon pepper?
Oh, I don't like barbecue wings, so I have to go lemon pepper.
Okay. Do you like your wings wet or dry?
Wet because I like garlic hot sauce.
Okay. Oh, okay. You like a spice, like a little spice with it. Okay, I like that. Do
Yeah.
you like your wings bone in or bone dry,
Gotta
or
be
bone
bone
in or
in.
boneless?
Gotta be bone in. I don't eat the chicken tender variety.
Wow. Okay, I love it. Listen, I love it. So you like to get a little messy, is what you're saying.
Yeah, like if it's I'm not there to like eat popcorn and chicken with a fork. I'm eating a wing.
I love that. I love it. Okay, here we go. These next three have to do with concerts you rather attend. Okay, so here's the first concert. Which concert would you rather go to, Drake or Kendrick Lamar?
I think I would prefer Kendrick Lamar
Okay,
because Drake kind of all sounds the same to me. And I do like a song from Drake, so it's not like I'm like not a fan, but I think Kendrick would just be like I'd enjoy the atmosphere more.
got you. Okay, I like that. Which concert would you rather go to? Would you rather go see Limp Bizkit or Korn?
Oh, Limp Bizkit, and I'm not afraid to admit it. And I've seen Korn in concert. I've never seen Limp Bizkit, but there's something about Fred Durst and the way that he talked to my generation of people that like I just felt it to my core.
Okay, I like that. Which concert would you rather attend? Would you rather go see Breaking Benjamin, or would you rather go see Avenged Sevenfold?
Oh yeah, definitely Avenged Sevenfold. I've seen him 7 times in concert.
Wow, seven.
I know.
Okay, here we
I
go.
wouldn't even want to
Okay,
change it up. I wouldn't be like, "Oh, I'll go see Breaking Bad one." No, or Breaking Benjamin once. No. It's I'll see Avenged Sevenfold probably until I'm well into Walker days.
all right. I like that. Okay, that's gonna be many moons, by the way. So I
Yeah.
love that. I
I
love
have
that.
such a long time.
Right. So this next question has to do with sports. Which sport would you rather play, bowling or badminton?
Oh, recently the Let's Talk Broncos podcast we got really into bowling and we were going pretty often. I think we were teetering on the edge of figuring out if we wanted to be in a league or not. That's how often we were bowling.
Mhm.
Definitely bowling. It's
So you're
like
pretty good, is what you're saying.
I wouldn't I've never bowled a 300. Like there's no perfect game in my near history, but I'd like much rather bowl than try to hit like those little birdies with the racket.
Okay, because I'm a pretty good bowler, Bree. I'm just saying. So, I don't
We
know
may
if
have
you
to
know.
recruit you.
Yeah, I don't know if there's some good bowling alleys down there in Denver. I've never been to a bowling alley down there, but I'm pretty good. That's what I'm saying. So,
Keep that in mind.
yes, indeed. All right. Next question is, which sport would you rather watch on TV? Hockey or baseball?
Oh, hockey. Playoff
Okay.
hockey is some of the most intense shit I've ever seen. If I
Mhm.
had to watch baseball on a TV, like it's hard enough for me when I'm in the stadium.
Yeah.
On TV, I just don't it nothing's getting retained. Like it could be a strike and you could ask me and I'd be like, I have absolutely no idea what just happened. Like my brain turns off when I watch baseball.
I totally understand. Playoff baseball is a little different, but yes, regular season baseball, no question, man. That shit can get really boring
Listen,
after a
my
while.
team is the Colorado Rockies. I think you have to give me some grace here.
God bless your damn heart. My team is the Padres, so I understand. I
There you
understand.
go.
We're in the same division here, so I get it. I totally get that. Three more of the this or that. Do you like dessert?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Yeah, I would say that I'm partial to some sweets.
Okay, so the reason why I asked this question is because I'm gonna throw out four different categories of desserts. One of these you can never eat again.
Okay.
Okay, so you got to get rid of one. Here we go. A is candy, so that means any gelatin, any chocolate, doesn't matter what candy it is, it's candy. B is cakes. That could be cupcakes, bundt cakes, pound cakes, any cake. Okay. C is ice cream. Okay, and D is cookies. Which one are you getting rid of that you'll never eat again?
So I am not very partial to cake, of any variety. Like for my birthday, I'll usually ask for cinnamon rolls or Rice Krispie treats. And I'm a sucker for sour gummy worms. So cake can just, it can get out of here. It
Hold
can
up,
go away.
hell no. We are not going to the next question. Did you just say Rice Krispie treat and
Yeah.
cinnamon roll? Oh,
Yeah.
for your birthday?
Yeah, yeah, my aunt makes some really, like, amazing cinnamon rolls, like,
Wow.
homemade, and she also makes the Rice Krispie treats, and she knows that I'm really obsessed with them being like soft and pliable. I don't know, man.
Do you
I'm
put
kind of like,
marshmallows on it? Do you put marshmallows on it?
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I'm always like cake is kind of like it's like the extra I like frosting, but I don't gotta put it on bread, sugar bread to like eat it. So
True. That's
um
very true. I would have chose cake too, to be honest. I would have, but I've just never heard of anybody asking for a cinnamon roll or a Rice Krispie treat on their birthday. Normally, it is birthday cake or ice cream cake or something like that. But
yeah.
you know, I love it. I love it. You're different, and that's what I love about you. So that's awesome. Do you eat potato chips?
Yeah, yeah, I do.
Okay, so this is the same format. I'm gonna throw out 4 different brands. You got to get rid of one of them. Okay, so
Okay.
here we go. One is Ruffles. The second category is Lay's. The third category is Doritos. The fourth category is Pringles. Which
Oh,
one are you getting
Pringles.
rid of? Oh,
Pringles. I'm not even gonna let you finish, Chris. It's Pringles. Like toss them away. That weird tennis ball can, get rid of them. Like Pringles
wow.
were an absolute accident, and you cannot
Oh,
convince me otherwise. Like they don't need to exist. I was gonna say Ruffles because I didn't know like where you were gonna go with that last one because I don't really like the ridges. They're like
oh my
abrasive.
goodness. Bree, we've been vibing this whole damn podcast, and now you saying some craziness out your mouth. Ruffles has the greatest chip ever made. Do you know what that is? That's sour cream and cheddar. That's the greatest chip ever made.
No,
What other what other chip? What other chip?
I like salt and vinegar kettle chips.
Okay, let's move on.
Um
Uh-uh.
and like Funyuns. But I'm not a big like regular potato chip fan. But like Pringles piss me the off. Like I don't I don't like them. I don't buy them. Uh I I don't want to see them in my house, but you're right. Listen, Ruffles are not that far down on my list, but like I don't know, the sour cream and cheddar, I think it's too cheesy for me. Leave that to the Cheetos folks.
Okay, I feel it. We just cannot eat chips together. 'Cause you said salt and vinegar. That is
Yeah.
probably the second worst chip ever made.
I'm also partial to hot Cheetos, like flaming hot Cheetos.
Well, those are good. I'm with you on that. I'm totally with you on that. But see, Cheetos is only the reason why I didn't say Cheetos because you only can have you don't have that many brands to choose from. Like
Yeah.
Lay's, they have a whole bunch of different flavors. Ruffles has flavors, right? And then
Yeah.
you have Pringles. Pringles have flavors, but Cheetos is either hot, it's either cheesy, it's either puffy, or you know what I mean, or crunchy but they're cheese. So
Right.
regardless of what it is, it's still Cheetos. So that's why I didn't go with that route. But yes, you're right. Hot Cheetos are very good.
That's fair.
Last of the this or that. Okay. And that goes to back to music. Okay. So this is a concert question. Which concert would you rather attend? And these are going to be some throwback bands that I'm going to
Okay.
throw at you. Uh, hypothetical. Would you rather see Motley Crue or would you rather see Kiss?
I absolutely love hair metal, and I think Kiss is a little outside of what I was kind of growing up listening to. My dad kind of was like the whole AC/DC, which is about as far that direction I'm gonna go. So I would say Motley Crue because I fall more in that genre anyways.
Absolutely, no question. Definitely a great band. Are you big? So for people that love like rock and roll, I've been to one mosh pit. Now I'm not a fan of mosh pits. I'm gonna be honest with you because they get a little bit too physical, and I might have to knock somebody's ass out. And I don't want to do that at a concert because I like my freedoms, and I don't want to be going to jail. So,
Right.
are you a fan of mosh pits?
No, and I never have been. I'm like the old person who goes and sits in the balcony, or I go to shows and I stand up against the railing on the very far end, so I'm not gonna get like hit by anybody. I don't like a whole lot of people up in my business. I like my personal space, and I don't like the propensity of being punched in my face. So mosh pits are out.
I feel that. I'm with you on that, girl. There's no question. 0 to 60 podcast. Now we talked a little about your LTV podcast and what you do with your guys and your friends on there, and you guys produce 5 shows a week. Talk about the 0 to 60 podcast, because if I'm not mistaken, you do that with your significant other. So talk about that podcast and how that came about, and how what do you talk about on the podcast and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would be misguided if I said that, it was my podcast, 0 to 60 with Matt McChesney is on Monday through Friday. He goes live at 10 a.m. A lot of the time talking about the University of Colorado. He's a former Buff, and he played in the NFL. Talks to a bunch of former coaches and former players and former teammates, and sometimes he has some of the kids that he works with, since he runs 60 Academy here in Parker, Colorado. So 0 to 60 really is his podcast, and I happen to be around. So, we work in the same industries, and it just made sense for me to help on occasion. Sometimes I'll jump on there and talk some sports and try to rein him in. He's got an incredibly different style than me, but he's also been doing it a lot longer than I have. And the inception point was, he's longtime media member and wanted to kind of get his own podcast rolling, and the Believe Network decided to set him up there, and it's been fun. We had Coach Prime on a couple of months ago, and that was an incredible experience, getting to go up to Boulder and interview him and spend time within his grace, and just see how he operates. And that was a really cool experience. Recently had on Darren Shiverini, who's head coach up in Northeastern, and then Coach Carl Reed Jr. was on this week too. So it's a fun podcast for, maybe either if you're a Colorado Buffaloes fan, or if you're a fan of like old Smash Mouth football, or maybe you're interested in how college football recruitment goes.
Sure.
It's really definitely a podcast for that. I jump in, I talk a little bit of Broncos. We'll go back and forth on some current events, because you never know what we're going to talk about, because usually it's just us chilling at home, talking a bunch of shit at each other, which is a lot of fun. And I think at the end of the day, it's like what a blessing to be able to occupy the same space with, your significant other, and you don't want to kill each other on a daily basis. Like, that's pretty cool.
I would say so. Absolutely. What a lucky man Matt is, and what a lucky you are, I bet, to have him as well. There's no question about it, and I love that. But it also is a great segue. We're doing great segues here on the Work Hard, Play Hard podcast. I want to know, if you wasn't doing podcasting or in sports, what job would Bree do, and why? What career would you have chosen?
um Man, like, I feel like I'd be wafting around in higher education still. Like, I'd probably be right where I am, just without all the hobbies. But if I had to like choose,
Mhm.
God, it's so hard to think about. Like, I'm living kind of large right now, like I'm being able to blend like really cool aspects of things together. But I mentioned in the beginning, I always thought I was going to be a professional wrestler. I was really into it as a kid. I'm very physical, like I love like being active, and I'm pretty like outgoing in general. Like, I like to be performative. I think that probably is something I could have ended up doing and seen myself doing that well. And I think the other one would probably be something to do with animals. Like, I'd probably be volunteering at the zoo, and like doing some weird oddball job of feeding, like making the food buckets for the animals, and like being perfectly okay with it, because they can do no wrong. I like them more than people, and like that's my happy place. Like, when I'm not doing I think people think it's kind of funny, but on my days off, like when I have zero going on, I show up at the zoo really early, and I hang out there, and I eat lunch there, and I walk around, and I get my steps in, fresh air. And yeah, like that's where I spend my free time.
I love it. No, that's awesome. I think I would probably be in theater myself, because I'm a huge musical guy. So I love musicals. I love acting. I love plays, and I just
Okay.
love the stage presence. Like, I love being a character outside of myself, because I'm Chris every single day. So it's great to be able to be somebody else and act like somebody else. So that's pretty cool, pretty awesome. I like that. I was a huge wrestling fan myself. The Attitude Era, to me, you cannot tell me any different, was the best era of all time.
It was prime. It shaped our brains. It
No
changed our
question.
brain chemistry. Like
No
I
question.
can't see certain things without being like completely overwhelmed with nostalgia.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in future podcasts, I'm definitely going to have me a WWE NXT person on this podcast. I can't reveal who yet, but they're coming on very soon. No question about that. So I'm very happy about that. On with Bri Maestes, radio host, podcaster host, based out of Colorado, Denver, or in Denver, Colorado, I should say, on the Work Hard, Play Harder podcast. We are come to the last two questions, which is advice. This is the two-part question, Bree. What advice has someone gave you that you hold on dearly to? And what is some advice you would give someone that wants to break in this industry?
Okay, that's a great question. Um, so there's two pieces of advice that I've gotten that are really that have really stood out to me. And I guess I don't have to say who they're from, but one of the pieces of advice was there's no such thing as over preparation. Like
Mm,
everyone can give you a hard time and say you're doing too much or whatever, but you can never be too prepared. And knowing my style of things and knowing, that that person said that because they understood that, but also wanted to lift me up and give me the okay, like it's okay to work as hard as you do. You can't be too prepared. I think that was really like the grace that I needed to feel good with the amount of work I put into things.
sure.
And it also came from the same person who I very much so stylize what I do around. And so it was like a confirmation, like, okay, I don't have to feel bad about this. And also the person that I respect the most is saying that it's a good thing. So like that was great. It was like confirming that I felt like I was moving in the right direction. And the other one is somebody that I work very closely with on a very consistent basis. And they've kind of, instead of harboring all of their information that they've built over the years, they decided that it was appropriate to let me in on that. And they didn't need to. And in some forms, we could be seen as competition. And uh, he told me, sat me down and said, you don't win if I don't win, and I don't win if you don't win. It was kind of like this ability to work with each other and understand that helping out the person you're working with, one, it makes you look good because they're good and they're doing well and you're doing well. It's a dance. It's like any kind of choreographed dance, and really understanding that that person wanted to make sure that I succeeded. And that like they don't succeed if I don't succeed. Like that was huge because I think most people would try to just make me look dumb so that they looked better. And I think that's like a common thing that happens. And, this person didn't want that for me. And they also told me, when people have something good to say to you in this industry, when they come and give you positive feedback, take it.
Mhm.
Take it and accept it and digest it and internalize it, because there's so many people out there who want to tell you you suck, you don't deserve to have this, like you're terrible, your voice sucks, your takes are dumb. There's always so much negative
Sure.
feedback that
Sure.
when a program director comes in and gives you like, man, really good job changing direction there. It felt so organic and like you did a really, when you get that positive feedback, take it and really understand that that is a positive thing that they meant and you deserved. And so that has reminded me on many, many occasions that when someone says, really, really good job there, they meant it. Because in the industry of entertainment, it's usually you screwed up your line, don't do it again. And so it's really nice to make sure that you take the good with all of that. And as far as advice that I would give, especially if you're just trying to break in to this,
Mm-hmm.
is don't get discouraged, and that's so cliche, but you have to say yes to everything that feels right. Like, obviously, within the lines of reason, right? Like, don't go setting yourself on fire to keep other people warm. But if there's opportunities and the only reason you're saying no is because you're scared, do it scared. And that
Like it.
is that is the only thing I will say, because at the end of the day, it's about what you decide, and you can't live your life ruled by fear. It'll be the worst thing that you've ever done, and regret isn't an option in this life because it's too damn short. So do the thing, do it scared, and keep saying yes.
I love it. I love it. No question about it. I second that. Um, Listen, you have to take the opportunities when they come because they are far and limited. If you don't, somebody else will. So for that, you definitely want to say yes. You know yourself, as I tell everybody else, you know yourself, you know what your boundaries are. But again, in this industry, it's just not about what you have. It's also about what you know and what you're willing to do, or who you know and what you're willing to do. So, this last question I have is there anything else you would like to add about yourself, Bree, before we conclude? We've had a hell of a conversation. I love this. So, anything else you want to add?
Um, I think no, like, I have a tendency to go, like, I'm long-winded, I know that, so if you've listened this far, you're amazing, and I appreciate you, and Chris, thank you for allowing me the opportunity. I don't really get a whole lot of time to talk about myself. It's usually, talking about whatever sports team is in front of me, but, it's always nice because I learn something more and more each time about myself. I will say, though, if you see me in public, approach with caution, and that's only because I'm more afraid of you than you are of me. I'm, just a regular person trying to figure out this really weird, complex life. And I'm honored that people are okay with listening to me on a constant basis, that I even have people, wanting to ask me to do podcasts. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of trippy. I'm still new to this, and I enjoy every moment of it because I no longer live like life afraid of what's going to happen. I just want to keep learning, man.
Absolutely. You and me both. People definitely need to tune in to your LTB podcast. Listen to that, especially people out there where you are in Denver, Colorado. Obviously, 0 to 60 with your significant other, with Matt. Is it McKesney? McKesney or
Mc
McChesney?
McChesney, yeah.
McChesney. Yes, definitely need to listen to that Monday through Friday. And obviously, you're going to be on Twitter tweeting things with the upcoming season of the Buffs and the Broncos. I thank you very much, Bree, for hopping on my podcast, rocking with me here late. And we will definitely, you and I would definitely be in touch for sure. You take care and enjoy your Wednesday night.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate you so much.
No problem. You take care.
Thanks, you too.
Bye bye.